Welcome to Wayward Writers. I'm senior literary agent and author Heather Cashman.
I'm author and writing coach Stephanie Bearce.
And I'm author and writing coach Nicki Jacobsmeyer.
Our mission is to nurture and enrich established writers throughout their publishing journeys.
We welcome all genres, age groups, and publishing paths through video podcasts, online webinars, in-person retreats, and more.
We're here to help you conquer your path.
We are talking today about time management. And we were just talking about the fact that whether you do it or not, you can always improve.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And whether we like it or not, we all only have 24 hours in the day. And we all have many hats and different hats than each other. So first of all, don't go comparing yourself to anyone else as much as we like to do that.
And also, I think we shouldn't compare ourselves to our past
Ooh, good
selves,
point.
because there were times in my life when I was maybe much more efficient, or there were times in my life when, I had really bad health problems and I kept thinking, why can't I do what I used to do? And I had to show myself a little bit of patience.
Good point.
Ladies, where are you right now, do you feel, in your time management struggles? Got it all under control? Tell us. Nicki, go first. Tell us where you are with yours right now.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I feel more in the flow now than I probably did 3 months ago. And honestly, that's because of you two and having conversations with you about how you manage your time. And here's the thing, like, so many things about learning are being vulnerable, right? So I had to swallow my pride and be like, I'm not doing this time management thing great right now. Who do I see in my life that seems to do it all? And not only do it all, but do it all fabulously. And those are two of my co-hosts. So I was like, hey, can I take a few minutes of your time and ask you what you do? And they shared with me. And those are things we're going to share today. Those are things that are going to be shared in our webinar that's going to be available. But the bottom line is some of those things I have worked for me, and other things that might have worked for Stephanie and Heather don't work for me. And so you have to adapt to what works for you. And I think we all have a different measure. Like, I'm a huge control freak. I will admit that. Like, I am happiest when I'm in control, especially of my time. And the bottom line is that's not realistic to a certain point, right? We've all been going through our day. Everything's great. And then you get the call that someone needs to be picked up from school because they're vomiting. And then, like, a parent has fallen down the steps. Like, all of these things, and they can be little or gnats, or they could be really big things.
I literally just got a call before this podcast from the campground that my RV is parked in right now, saying there has been an incident with a lawnmower. So guess where I'm going right after this podcast?
To the campsite to deal with the lawnmower.
See what happened to
and my guess is that was not in your schedule of events today, right?
Else
was. And so now it's that whole pivot. What about you two?
Yeah.
Where are you guys at?
Heather's going to find out whether she has a big hole in her trailer first.
Maybe we should leave it as that. That's a lot to process.
But go, Heather, tell us. I'm a little concerned about your trailer.
I think that my strictness with my time management comes in waves. And there are times when I'm getting enough sleep, I'm getting things done, and I'm feeling very confident, and life is going pretty smoothly. And I do amazing. I get up, I get tons of stuff done. But then there are times when, like just this past 4 months, I've been flipping a house, and I haven't been able to be as diligent as I need to with my reflections and my prioritizing and things like that. And so right now I'm feeling like, I need to get my planner out and get everything out of my brain onto the paper. That's a natural cycle that we go through, because the most important thing is that if we have been doing those things, then they're habits that we just naturally continue doing. You don't even have to think about
Mhm.
it. Like, you don't have to give it any emotional effort because it's just something that you automatically
Right.
do. And that honestly is the only thing that has kept me from going crazy in the last 3 and 4 months, is because I had been really diligent and I had those habits and I was able to just rely on those for a while. And even still, things spooled out of control a little bit. So that's where I'm at.
I think that happens to everyone. And having grace for yourself and the situation you're in at the time is really important. Our life stages change constantly.
Mhm.
And as those stages change, how you have to manage your time changes too. For me, one of the things that I may not have. Some people have like, I get up in the morning at 5:30 and write and do all this, and it's like, oh, that's so lovely. I'm so glad you get to do that.
I'm
I'm
dreaming
up
of
at
you. No, I'm kidding.
no, no, I'm up at 5 a.m. because there's a couple of granddaughters coming to the door,
Yes,
and then we're
right.
gonna go and drop them off at school, and I got to make sure they have breakfast. Da, da, da. So I do the grandma slash mom thing, and that's the stage I'm in right now. But it doesn't mean I don't have other things that need to get done. So
Mhm.
I think I always like the analogy of putting the big rocks in first,
Yes.
and then the smaller rocks will fit in around those. And so that's what I try and do when I'm looking at my life, whatever stage I'm in. What are the big rocks? What are the
Mhm.
things that have to be done? And then where can I fit the other things in around that? And that flexes and moves and changes. And I think we have to be okay with that shifting of our lives.
Absolutely.
Flexibility helps a lot.
Absolutely. So, like when someone says, like here today, we're talking about time management, right? And it's like, oh, time management. But what is time management? I think it'd be good for us to stop for a minute and define what that really is, because it sounds like such
Well,
a
to me, I really,
stringent, non flexible thing that has to be
to me,
flexible, right?
to me, time management is using the time that you are given to the best of your ability and putting those priorities first.
Hmm.
And I have to know sometimes you have to sit down and assess, just like you said, Nikki. We only have 24 hours in a day. No matter how many times we want to bargain with God to give us extra, it is
Sure.
not going to happen. So I have to evaluate how to use those hours. And when I'm making a conscious decision how I use those hours, that's time management.
Hmm.
When I am not, when I'm just letting it flow and just, oh, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but I'll just deal with it. That's not me managing the time. That's events managing my time. So to me,
Yes.
that's what it is. I can't manage all of it, but I can choose with the time that I have what I do with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, like, the difference is you're either letting your life control you,
Mm-hmm.
or you are controlling your
Yeah.
life. To me, time management is you are making an active
Hmm.
decision to decide where your time is going to go. Obviously, things are going to happen. There's going to be
Yes.
emergencies, but that way, when there are emergencies, you know where to
Mm-hmm.
shift, you know where to move, you know what is supposed to be being done in that time, and where else can you put that.
And
Um,
what you have to cut.
and I think,
Hmm.
Because when
yes,
emergencies happen,
yeah,
things have
or
to
what you have
what
to
has
cut.
you know because you've managed your time. I
Right.
have to cut this, and this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, what no longer serves you when I feel like I'm running out of time, right? I'm looking at all the things I've committed to. What no
Mm-hmm.
longer serves me, right? And
Yes.
they can be good
right.
things. They could be
Yep.
wonderful things. They could be things I enjoy, but I enjoy these things more and they're more of a priority to me, or they're going to help me get to a goal. If it no longer serves you or your family or the people important of your life, reflect on that.
Mm-hmm.
You get to choose. We always have a choice, right? And there is something about that saying when someone's like, if you want something done, ask the busiest person in the room, right? Because the busiest person in the room is getting things done because there's not this like floundering and it's not always laziness, right? Sometimes it's just coming up for air, but
Hmm.
you have so many things you need to get done and you know the importance of them. And so
Yes.
if you guys, when you sit down and you're like, okay, I need to reorganize what's important to me, where do you start for our listeners that are like, okay, yes, it's time. I need to control my calendar and my life more than my calendar controlling me. Where would you recommend people start?
When I very first started time management skills, what I did was I started writing down like everything I did. I spent this much time cooking, which I was so surprised at how much time I had been spending cooking. I spend this much time doing my grocery list. I spend this much time. And I wrote down everything I was doing. How much time did I talk on the phone with my mother? How much time did I, like, literally, like, all these things? I wrote them down, wrote them down, wrote them down. And I did that for like a week. And it was actually really eye opening to me. Okay, this is where my time is
Mm,
going. And like you said, Nikki, then after I knew where my time was going, I was able to say, is this thing really helping me? Or is there some way that I could make this particular thing more efficient?
Hmm.
And that's when I started looking for ways. Once you know what you have to do, right? Like you have to eat.
sure.
How can you do your grocery shopping more efficiently? So for me, that's where I
Yeah.
began.
In the business world, that's called a time audit. Don't
Right.
change anything. You don't owe anyone a change yet. You're just evaluating. And it
Hmm.
is remarkable. I know at one point I was fascinated by how much TV I was watching, which a lot of times I wrote off as research. But let's be honest, I was avoiding my butt in the seat for writing. Oh, I'm doing more research. I'm doing more research, right? And that could be a whole nother topic. But how about you, Stephanie? What do you do?
I live such a life that I have so many outside influences that I have to juggle that, and it has always been that way for me. And I don't ever see that ending, so that I have always had to be really aware of my time. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of instinctive. And I know that that's not that way for everybody.
Sure.
So I'm in a different box than some people. But I do think there are people like me that I have lots and lots of outside responsibilities, and lots of us do. But it doesn't mean I can't find that time, that priority for what's really important to me. My writing is really important to me. And I remember when I was a widow with two little kids on my own, and it was hard, and I still wanted to write. And a dear friend of mine, Chris Nitz, was like, "Well, do you have 15 minutes?" And I was like, "Yep." So I took 15 minutes a day, and I wrote a novel in 15 minutes a day.
Mm.
Now, it took me 2 years,
But you did it.
but you do it. So I really think that even if you're someone like me, that you have a lot of outside pressures on your time, I may not be able to get rid of some of them. That is just how life is. But it is that prioritizing of what's most important to you and making sure that those are fit into whatever schedule you have. That's how I
Yeah.
deal with it. It's like I do prioritize
Hmm.
and sit down. I don't necessarily have a time audit, but I can tell you probably about every minute of my day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So,
Well, and this is what I really don't like about someone saying you have to write every single day if you want to be a writer.
no.
Because the reality is, there are people who literally
Oh,
cannot
yeah.
write every
Sure.
single day. And maybe all they have is Sunday afternoons, but they have 3 hours on Sunday afternoons, and that's when they do their
Exactly.
writing. And I think that is just as valid as someone who writes 15 minutes a day
How
or whatever. I
whatever,
just
you have to figure it out within your schedule, but I think if that's going to be a priority
yeah.
for you, then you've got to figure it out in the schedule. And there are some different ways to do that, and there are different methods of time management. Do you guys want to kind of go over some of those?
So one big thing that people talk about is distractions, which is kind of something
Hmm.
you touched on, Stephanie. And you have like good distractions and outside
Sure.
responsibilities like your grandchildren and everything. You have 7 books that are being published this year. So obviously like you're making time when this lovely, and it's not even a distraction, right? It's a positive
Yeah,
relationship
it's
that you've
just
wanted
life.
to do, but it's life, right? You have this
Hmm.
responsibility, and then this time you're doing that instead of other
Right.
things, right? There's always going to be sacrifices, and we all have different. Learning your weakness about time management is probably the biggest thing because if distractions are a big deal, there are apps out there that you can purchase. I'm not sure offhand if there's some for free. One thing for free is giving it to someone in your family and having them hide it from you. That's for free. But it's a blackout distraction app. If you feel like you're constantly checking your email or social media or texts or the phone keeps dinging. I know I
Hmm.
took certain things off my phone so I couldn't check it. There is no sounds coming from my phone anymore because those things are distractions. And you might think, oh, it just pings. But if you're deep in a novel, it might have taken you 20 minutes to get in that world and then you're out of
Yeah.
it, right? Like that is precious
Yeah.
time and you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your work, you owe it to your characters, your readers, etc., to stay in that 20 minutes instead of some sale that's happening at a supplement store that's not important to your life, right? So there's these blackout apps. I'm a huge fan of rewards. I'm still a child at heart. I make these sticker boards and whatever that gets me going. Like, if I do whatever it is, X, this many times, I get to whatever, mani pedi, a dinner out. I mean, whatever it is that toots your horn, right? And I usually tell someone about it so I don't cheat and that they can cheer me on. But reward yourself for the little things, whatever it is, a first draft, a query letter, a revision, any of those things, right? You can reward yourself. Another thing, I have a friend and her time's a little different. So it's not exactly the Pomodoro method, but what she does, and I think is great, when she doesn't want to write, but wants to write, she sets her alarm for 15 minutes. And for 15 minutes, she has to write whatever. And then 9 out of 10 times, when that alarm goes off in 15 minutes, she doesn't want to stop. But she's allowed herself that if in 15 minutes I'm done, I can walk away. And I've tried that and usually same case. Like I'm in it now. Now I don't want to be distracted, but it's like the blank page, right? It's the scariest thing in the world. Getting started is super scary. And the Pomodoro method is basically where you set your timer for 30 minutes, you set an amount of time. I'm going to work this amount of time and then I'm going to take a break. So if people work from home and have not a traditional 9 to 5 job, you can do your work and then you could write. Or if you're writing, and then you could go do a load of laundry or go pick up a kid somewhere. And it allows you to do those things. It helps you integrate it into your life and you're breaking it up and you're taking a break because it is important to walk away, not only mentally, but like physically, like for your heart. You've got to get up every hour and walk around. Like you have to. The American Heart Association says it is very vital that you do, but things like that and sleep, like I know we're all over the board. Don't forfeit your sleep that you need. I would love to sleep 10 hours. I mean, I love sleep. I don't know if you all love sleep, but I love it. But you don't necessarily need 10 hours. Find out what you need to function right because we all have our time. I know they say 8 hours, but some people are super fine on six. What is it that allows you to be healthy and think correctly and all those things? So I know
Hmm.
you all have used other methods too. What do you think? You've shared them with me and they're brilliant. So
I've used the Pomodoro method as well. And I think for me, I tried using a timer on my phone and it didn't work. And I got myself a little I got it on Amazon. It's called the time timer. But it's basically like you click it around and it shows you the time disappearing. And for me, it's very effective because I have it sitting right there and it keeps me motivated because I'm like, okay, I only have this much more time for this task and I really need to get it done. If I've planned out my day and I only have an hour for putting out submissions, then I'm gonna work to get as many submissions out in that hour as I can. And so for me, seeing actually having the
Mhm.
physical thing that you can see the time disappearing. And for some people, it's the auditory. They have the timers that click, 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 click,
Mhm.
click, 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 and you can hear time going
Ugh,
by. And
that
that's
would make
part of
me
the
I'm
Pomodoro
a
crazy.
method.
visual. For those of you who aren't watching,
Yeah,
I have an old sand glass that you feel like you're going to drown in. It's very effective.
yeah, it is
Mhm.
effective. So I do like the Pomodoro method. I think too, it like you were saying about the 15 minutes, after about 10 minutes you get into that like flow state and you're just really in it and productive. And I think that's important. I have used a combination of time blocking and day theming.
Yes.
Hmm.
Tell us what that is.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so time blocking for me has really been effective because again, it's like getting into that flow state. Let's say I'm going through my query inbox and let's say I'm going and I'm answering, maybe people have sent me messages. So I go and I answer that as part of my morning routine or whatever. But then if I just really want to focus on queries, then I block out like 4 hours and I go in and I only do queries for 4 hours. So that's time blocking. When I'm editing client manuscripts or I need a chunk. Like I can't edit a client's manuscript 15 minutes a day. It doesn't work. I need a chunk of time. So you take these tasks, like let's say you have a whole week's worth of things to get done, and you say, okay, I know this thing is going to take me 8 hours of time. So I'm going to do 4 hours here and I'm going to do 4 hours here. And then let's say you have 4 hours of editing on Monday and 4 hours of editing on Tuesday, and then maybe you do your 4 hours of your query inbox on Wednesday. So that's time blocking. And it is really good because I feel like it helps you get in that flow and you're like, I don't need to do anything else during this time. I don't have to think about anything else during this time. I can just focus. And then day theming, I've also found really helpful. So, what day theming is you do like all of a certain type of task on a certain day. So, let's say I want to do all my editing on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I want to do all of my administrative tasks on Monday, and I want to do all of my contracts on Wednesday. The advantage of that is that you're taking all of the things that you need to do and you're combining them so that when you're in the contracts, you are already in the contract
Mhm.
stuff, right? And so you're not having to go to different folders, you're not having to change course in the middle of the day. You get into those mindsets and then you're able to just really focus. There's a lot of advantages to knowing, like, I have this massive, massive to do list and I'm going to put all my administrative tasks in one list and I'm going to just try and get those done on Monday. And then I put all my editing tasks on one list and I try and get those done on Tuesday. And I think for me it's like dividing and conquering, right? Because you're able to divide it up in a way that's logical but also
Mhm.
manageable.
I use a lot of the theme days and time
Mhm.
blocking myself. That's probably mostly how I do that. But we've talked about emergencies. What about the evil procrastination?
Mhm.
What about those things that you don't want to do? How do you get yourself to do it? Because that'd be mine. I'm really good about chunk, 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 but I will have something like calling the insurance
Mhm.
company.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's like that book,
It's like,
Eat the Frog First.
I
My
know.
husband says that a
Yeah.
lot. Eat the frog, eat the frog. And it is true, right? I mean,
Yes.
like logically get the worst thing done with first. But I find a fun beverage to go along with that long insurance call. Or
Oh,
maybe when
Lord.
I'm done with the long insurance
I'm afraid the
call,
insurance call will last so long that the fun beverage will have
right? I get some
warped
dark
my ability.
chocolate. I will say, if I have to make a phone call of any sorts, writing or not related, there is another task that I am doing while I'm on hold because
Yeah.
it makes me less frustrated and I'm getting two things done at once. And I think it's fair to say that Heather, Stephanie, and I are big list people. And I realize that some
Yes.
people out there don't do lists. And here's what I would recommend. I live with three non listers, and that's great. That's totally them. I have to have my calendar written out. I don't do electronics. I have to see it all. I am a weird, strange bird. I get it. However, what I tell them, fine, have your calendar in there, but have a place on your phone because here's the thing. If you're carrying around in your brain and not somewhere that you can retrieve it, that you need to remember XYZ, that real estate is taken in your brain. I think you're not able to
Yep.
create as much because your brain is full and stressed out. I think it can give you anxiety. Like, get a, even if it's just a notebook where you just like word vomit on it and you could rip the page out every day. There has to be somewhere where you can deposit. If you don't want a to do list, fine, but you've got to get it out of your brain. I don't know about you all, but like, I have a hard time like just letting my brain wander and imagine things if I feel like I have so much to do and I don't know how I'm going to get it done. And that's usually because I haven't written it out or had a plan. So I can't let the juices flow because there's no place for the juices in my brain to go. I don't know. Am I wrong there? What do y'all think?
I don't think so. One of the most important parts of time management is setting goals
Agreed.
and knowing what you want. We were talking about how do you not procrastinate? If you have a goal and you know what you want to accomplish and you know why you want to accomplish it, and you really want that thing, which you should want, your goals, if you know what you want and you know why you want it, and you can use those things to remind yourself of why you're doing this and that you want that thing, then to me, it really helps not to procrastinate on things because that's something that you want. I also think that we catastrophize way too much. Like, oh, this call is going to be horrible and I hate talking to people on the phone and I hate this and I just know this is going to be terrible. And the reality is, at least for me, it's almost never as bad as we think it's
Right.
going to be.
That's adulting, right? But then
Yeah.
it's done, which is a
Yeah.
huge thing. A lot of times when you have a goal for something that seems so lofty, but you don't know the mini goals you're going to do to get to that big goal,
You
it
have to,
feels
you have
like
to break it up.
I'm walking up to an elephant and I'm told to devour the whole thing in 5 minutes. And the thing is, it's one bite at a time. But if I don't know what bites I have to take, I'm just going to run away from the elephant and be like, nope, sorry, this is too much. And so, statistically, if you goal set, you are more likely to reach that goal than if you don't.
Yeah.
That that is
Way more
right.
likely.
And writing it down, the intention and stating
Yeah.
it is huge, both personally and like into the world as far as wanting to get it done.
I also would like to say that I do think that sometimes procrastination is not a time management problem, but it could be due to managing your negative emotions. And I think that sometimes we have really valid things like anxiety or
Sure.
depression that will keep us from doing things. And you have to know yourself and you have to give yourself that grace that you need in order to overcome those. Like, you really have to take care of yourself too. So,
I I really agree with the goal setting. I think that that is critical. You and again, that's setting priorities. What are your priorities? What are your goals? And not only just work goals, but what are your life goals? What do you want to
yeah,
do at this stage in your life and what's most important to you? And so it really takes some time to sit down and reflect and you need to do that so that you
Hmm.
can evaluate and then decide what. Let's be realistic. You're probably going to have to eliminate some things on your list or your activity calendar. I have found that so often a very powerful word is no. and not
Yes.
being able to not being afraid to say no to somebody. Somebody can ask you to volunteer for something. It can be
Yeah.
the most wonderful thing in the world. It can even be something that you really want to do. But if you have already done that time assessment, you already have your goals in place, and that this doesn't align with the goals that I have and is not going to fit into the time that I have assessed that I have, you can say no without feeling any guilt. You can, and it can relieve you of
Yeah.
that guilt, that
Mhm.
pressure of taking on one more task that really shouldn't be in your list.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that's critical, is to really know yourself, know what your goals are, know what time you have, and then you're going to be able to make good decisions about how to use that time.
Yeah,
So,
and
Yeah.
I mean, I think start like finding out what are your non-negotiables for the
exactly.
day, whether it's I will take a 15-minute walk every day, or I will sit down with a child and read, or I'll have coffee with my spouse, or I'll have quiet time in my religion or faith, whatever that is, right? If you have a non negotiable, and if that gets done that day, that's a win for yourself. You did not negotiate, no one took that away from you. And you also have to give room for yourself. You schedule an appointment to go get your teeth cleaned, which is an awful experience. Plan 15 minutes for you, whatever that is. 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I mean, I don't know what it is, right? Give up the 10 minutes that you play Candy Crush, and maybe that's what your time is. I
Maybe
don't
that's your
know.
10
I'm not,
minutes. I don't
maybe
know.
that is your 10 minutes, right? If you want to listen to the birds chirp, make that appointment for yourself. Or
Mm-hmm.
at least I've found in my life, even though I might be goal setting and managing my time, my cup's not being filled for the me time, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
can't help anyone if you haven't helped yourself. Like mental health is huge. I know we've talked about it before. We will continue to talk about it because you cannot be in this industry without having a pulse on your mental health, right? Or it goes sour.
True.
And I mean, don't you think too? Like, I mean, I don't know about you all, but there'll be days I'm like, okay, we're gonna have this and this and this and this done, and someone's called and they're like, I have tickets to. Hey, do you want to go here? And it's like something that is totally spontaneous. And sometimes I'm like, absolutely. And will there be things that I need to move around? Yes, but that's also the joy of living, right? And
It is. And that's the thing, that
Yeah.
when you have a handle on your time management, then you don't hesitate to do that. That's what I think
good
people
point.
are
Good point.
Yeah.
mistaken about, is that
Yeah.
you're so rigid that you can't do it. When I'm doing well with my time management and something fun, a friend calls and says, "Do you want to have lunch?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I can
Sure.
block this and shove this over here because I know what I need to get done. I know what time it's going to take, and I can move stuff around and make something fun happen too." So, time management also gives you freedom and flexibility to be able to have those moments and not panic going, "Oh, I can't do this because I've got this huge list." And
Sure.
I think so. I really think
Right.
time management gives you the freedom to have those spontaneous and fun moments too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Heather, what resource, I think you there was a book on time management that you've mentioned in the past that you would recommend or helped you?
Um, yeah, I've had a couple. One is called bullet
Mhm.
journaling, or the bullet journal, something like that. It's just a way of, like you said, dumping out all your thoughts. And when I started doing time management, that's how I started. And the reason I liked that one is because everything is in one little notebook. All it takes is like a $2 spiral bound notebook from Walmart or wherever, and you don't have to have anything
Mhm.
fancy. The other thing that I really liked is called Getting Things Done: The Art of Stress Free Productivity by David Allen. And I really like that one because it just has this method for capturing all of your tasks and ideas in a system and then breaking them down into, like you were saying, sometimes we're at the elephant and we don't know how to eat it. It's good at taking those like projects or goals, that you them down And it also emphasizes like reducing your stress by organizing your tasks and commitments in a way that frees your mind and allows you to focus on that thing that you need to be doing right now. And then, you don't have to worry about anything else in the moment because you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I think the other thing I really love about it is that it's very adaptable. It can be customized to however you like it. Some people only want stuff to be in a written form. Some people want a combination of a written notebook and a digital time management system, or some people like to be all digital. And the book, like, it just helps you essentially find a way to figure out what works for you. And it's just a really practical, holistic approach with examples.
I like the part that you said that works for you, because I think as adults, we are definitely able to change, and we do change and we learn things. But a lot of times I think we force ourselves to do things that don't work with us, and no one wins in the end in some of those scenarios. So do
Yeah,
what, if you're a visual learner, if you're an auditory, know yourself and work with those strengths. We're adults now, right? We're trying to make it all work. So, do what it's going to work
yeah,
for you, which might not work for someone else. So how about you,
Give it a
Steph?
chance. I was
Yeah,
going to say,
no,
give it a
absolutely.
chance, because
Yes.
sometimes you'll throw something out
Yeah,
before
that's
you've
true.
given it long enough to try. But there's so many options and things available out there. I love the bullet journal myself, and I still, yeah. So I have
Yeah.
my own. I'm showing everybody my bullet journal, and that's how I keep track of stuff.
Hmm.
I love when you were talking about you have people who aren't list makers. I am not able to understand those people, but I know that you guys are out there in the audience and listening, and so please forgive me, but I don't understand how you don't love having that beautiful list that you get to check stuff off, and
Oh my
it's like
gosh.
that's just so
Do you
happy.
put
It's
things
so
on the
wonderful.
list to check off that weren't originally on the list? Am I the only
No,
weird
I
one?
do not, but
Oh,
it's
so I'm
tempting.
super
But
weird.
yeah,
Okay, for
no.
those of you that see me, I'm with you.
Yes. I understand that for some people, they feel very constrained
Hmm.
by a list and constrained by time. And I have been doing some research because I have found that time to me is it's really valuable, but I have learned about an amazing thing called time blindness, that certain people, their brains do not work the same, and they don't actually feel the passage of time the same way. So there are often people who are late all the time. They
Hmm.
have time blindness. And that's a whole nother issue. You may have other issues that you don't even realize you have if you're having trouble focusing or having trouble with time management. You may want to even take a personality test or something to just help you figure out what your style is and what's going to be able to help you the most. I really think it's key. I think both of you have said you need to have yourself figured out in order to manage time and to manage your life. And so it is a mental health thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But taking that time, I think, to figure yourself out and figure those things out is going to be productive for you and your life in the long run.
Yeah, and Stephanie, what you just said, giving it a try. If you live with people or close with people, maybe let them know, hey, I'm trying this new thing. Will you just
Mm-hmm.
observe? Because a lot of times I'll learn from my husband or my children when I ask them what maybe is working more than other. Oh, you seemed really like relaxed and easygoing this week. And then other times it's like, you weren't the best version of yourself. You know what I mean? These are things like sometimes, right? Other people know us
I think that's a
well,
good
really
point.
well, and they
Yes.
have a different perspective on it. So
Mm-hmm.
again, you have to be
Yeah.
vulnerable, right? But
Yes,
like vulnerability like breeds knowledge and growth
it does.
and all of those things, right? I will say one thing that has stayed with me over the past almost decade or so. I don't remember when it came out, but Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I
That's a
listened
good
to it
one.
on audiobook, and one of the opening chapters, It's about someone that was a writer and she wants to write. She's working multiple jobs, and someone was like, "Oh, do you write in the evening?" "Oh, I don't have time. I don't have time." And the person's like, "Oh, so you never get to see your friends?" And she's like, "Oh, no, I get to see my friends." And like, "Oh, you never get to watch any TV?" "Oh, no, I watch TV." So you have time to write. And that's a huge generalization, but it hit me in that I know people that are writers, that are successful, that have more hats than I do, that have less time on their hands. There was a huge reflection to me that I make time for what's important to me. And so then the question is, what's important to me?
Yep.
And don't be ashamed
Yes.
if what's important to you is watching TV.
Correct.
If you really decide that, because there are days when I'm like, you know what? The most important thing to me right now is that I get to sit down and I get to not think for a minute.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So whatever it is, and it might not be writing, and that's okay. It might not be writing that day or that week, right? It's all seasons.
I think what we're saying is figure out yourself, figure out your priorities, figure out what you have on your plate already, and then you're going to be able to work with your time management that you have.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think that in addition to that, the last step I would say is decide what boundaries you want to set.
Absolutely.
And set those boundaries for yourself. Because, like you were saying, we need to say no. At least I know for me, there have been times in my life when I will need time to write, but everyone else in the house thinks that my writing is not the top priority.
Yes.
Even though for me, it is the top priority. And you have to set those boundaries and say, you know what? I know this isn't important to you, but it's important to me. And this is the line that I'm drawing in the sand.
Block it out really big on a schedule for everyone.
Right. Color code it. Put it out there. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode on time management. If you want to learn more and dive in to see what's going to work for you, head on over to our courses webpage. And come join us and learn at a Basecamp course.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wayward Writers.
Let's connect. Find us at waywardwriters.com, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
See you next time. Conquer your path.